สวัสดีค่ะ
And สวัสดีค่ะ and welcome to Good Morning with Thai PBS World. I'm Hatay Teshekitiranan.
And I'm Nat Bonag, and we hope you had a great weekend. And we'll begin today with some sort of good news. If you remember the cave rescue around 2 years ago, and that was definitely a big moment there, and we have to say that they're going to make a film out of it, and it looks like the filming will begin very soon. Recently, Netflix will soon begin filming a movie about the famed international cave rescue of the wild boar boys back in 2019, as the film crew arrived in the northern province of Chiang Rai late last week to prepare for the shooting of its original motion picture. The Chiang Rai Chamber of Commerce revealed that the filming may generate up to 300 million baht in revenue, which can help revive the local economy, which is helpful at this time of economic recession due to the pandemic. But the film crew, which comprise around 200 people, are not staying at one hotel to prevent the possible spread of COVID-19, with no more than 10 members staying at each hotel. And it is expected that the filming will be wrapped up by the end of September.
And actually, Kanat, the Netflix deal in which the actual cave boys were also signed was the reason that the Thai film The Cave couldn't really feature the boys because of this exclusive media rights. So it's actually be really interesting indeed to see how the production comes out with the boys' participation and inputs. And the Thai film was also interesting also in which the actual people were participating in their roles in the film as well.
And the cave rescue was definitely a big story at the time, where the world was witnessing over the rescue of the 13 footballers and the coach as well. We also have to give huge credit to the divers and the rescue teams from many countries that came together to bring the footballers to safety.
Exactly, and that was a difficult rescue operation, no doubt about that, especially with really difficult weather conditions as well. And as I was there, Kunat, that those years ago, the conditions were really bad that all of us had to wear boots because it was just so muddy. But in the end, though, it was actually really good news indeed, and everyone was happy and relieved when the boys were discovered and safely rescued.
Definitely.
And now moving on to the COVID-19 situation, the Public Health Ministry is planning to seek an approval from the CCSA to screen up to 202,000 people living in and around markets in COVID-19 dark red provinces, as the number of infections and deaths remain high, especially at markets and crowded communities despite the partial lockdown. The Public Health Ministry is working on the mass screening after it learned that over 14,600 people found to be infected with COVID between April 1st and August 10 were all related to wet and flea markets in 23 provinces, now classified as dark red zones. And according to the plan, the mass screenings will focus on vendors and their employees who enter and exit the markets on a daily basis, customers and residents living around the markets. The entire operation will cover 683 markets, and over 202,000 people will have to be screened every week for 4 weeks. And about 850,000 ATKs will be needed, and they are expected to be supplied by the National Health Security Office, which is in the process of procuring 8.5 million ATKs through the government pharmaceutical organizations.
At the same time, there is also a plan to provide vaccinations to people in these areas and to community isolation facilities and field hospitals to accommodate those who tested positive for COVID-19.
Right. And also with this rate of spread, mass testing of the utmost important. So, of course, the authorities would need to ensure access to that as well, especially the people who cannot afford to buy the test kits themselves.
Exactly. And it has also been a month now that we're in a partial lockdown to curb the further spread of COVID-19. Recently, one of our reporters actually talked to some of the people living in Bangkok on how the lockdown affects them and what they think if the lockdown restrictions will be lifted by the end of this month. Let's find out more in this report by Chalalak Janwanpen.
Bangkok and other big cities in COVID-19 red zones are 7 weeks into a strict lockdown. All domestic flights are grounded, unnecessary travel is restricted, and most people are ordered to remain inside their residences between 9 p.m. and 4 a.m. Malls and recreational places are all closed. It could be said that this is one of the most restrictive lockdowns yet, and people from all walks of life are feeling their share of impacts. Most importantly, bread and butter issues are even more real this time.
หากินลำบากมากเลยวิ่งรถได้วันละเที่ยวได้60 บาทเลยตอนนี้เพิ่งจบใหม่ค่ะเด็กจบใหม่ก็เป็นปัญหาอยู่ค่ะเพราะว่าหางานทำไม่ได้
เพราะในเมื่อคุณล็อกดาวน์เราไปแล้วเนี่ยคุณไม่ได้มาช่วยเหลือพวกผมดูผมตอนนี้เราไฟแนนซ์เขาก็ไม่พักหนี้
เหมือนว่าเราใช้ชีวิตไม่ปกติเหมือนเดิมเราเป็นอาชีพอิสระอยู่แล้วคือบางทีมันไม่จำเป็นต้อง work from home หรือบางทีมันมีธุระก็ต้องออกไปอะไรอย่างเงี้ยครับ
จริงๆรู้สึกว่าไม่ต่างจากที่ผ่านมาเท่าไหร่เพราะว่าอย่างตัวหนูก็คือยังต้องใช้ชีวิตเหมือนเดิมค่ะด้วยความที่ต้องไปทำแลบไปอะไรอย่างนี้ค่ะมันหยุดไม่ได้อยู่แล้วค่ะสำหรับหนู
เรียนออนไลน์ครับ
เป็นไงบ้าง
ก็เรียนลำบากนะครับถ้าเรียนในห้องมันก็จะดีกว่าเรียนออนไลน์บางทีก็ไม่ได้ประสิทธิภาพ
สิ้นเดือนนี้เขาจะตัดสินใจว่าอาจจะเลิกล็อกดาวน์อย่างที่มองไงบ้างคะ
ถ้าเลิกล็อกดาวน์เหรอถ้าเลิกล็อกดาวน์มันก็ดีดิยังไงมันก็พออยู่ได้ถ้าคุณเลิกล็อกดาวน์แล้วคุณไม่จำกัดเวลาพวกผม
ถ้าเกิดมันยกเลิกได้ก็อยากให้ยกเลิกค่ะแต่ก็ต้องเพิ่มมาตรการอะไรของเขาไปเรื่อยๆที่แบบป้องกัน
คิดว่าน่าจะดีกว่าเก่าอีกหน่อยนึงครับเพราะตอนนี้มันก็ย่ำแย่กันหมดแล้วครับ
ก็เราเห็นกันมาแล้วว่าล็อกดาวน์มากันมาเดือนนึงแล้วยอดมันก็ไม่ได้ลดลงมากเท่าไหร่เลยเห็นว่าตอนนี้แบบยอดผู้ติดเชื้อก็ทะลุ1 ล้านไปแล้วการฉีดวัคซีนมันดีขึ้นหนูว่าก็น่าจะเห็นผลที่ดีขึ้นนะคะเพราะว่าตอนนี้ล็อกไปแต่ว่าการฉีดวัคซีนก็ไม่ได้คืบหน้าอะไรอย่างเงี้ยค่ะผลมันก็เหมือนเดิมอะไรอย่างเงี้ย
It's getting harder by the day to stay in, reducing the risk of infection. Unlike the first 2 waves when people tried out new recipes with their air fryer or became a TikTok star, the online sentiment shows people are becoming increasingly frustrated with the government's handling of the pandemic, especially when the vaccination rollout has not been at a satisfactory rate. At the same time, the lockdown and the economic sacrifices do not appear to reduce the number of infections. 5-digit numbers of new cases have become a daily reality, accompanied by deaths in triple figures. Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, in his capacity as the director of the Center for COVID-19 Situation Administration, is expected to review the lockdown again next week, while the general public have to wait and see how the administration will balance the local economy and the public health situation impacted by the COVID-19. Reporting by Chalalak Janwanpen for the Thai PBS World.
So that is what the people think about the lockdown restrictions. And we can see that the COVID-19 figures are still high despite the partial lockdown. And they seem to agree that if the vaccine management was much more effective, the situation would have improved.
Exactly. And some people have even come out to say before that a stricter measure is needed to rip off the bandage so we can try to move on faster. But there are still provincial movements, for example, despite the travel ban. So it is all about knowing where to tackle as well. For example, vaccination is also very important.
Right.
And moving on now, let's take a look at other stories making the headlines in our daily roundup. Another anti-government protest was held yesterday, which was led by the Talufa group at the Democracy Monument, with sports events held using Rashidamnun Avenue as a venue for a soccer match in the afternoon. A well-known protester who got hit in one eye and became reportedly half blind also rejoined the protest. Although their gathering was peaceful, another group, the Hardcore One, clashed with police again yesterday, throwing bricks and firecrackers at police in Dindang. Police deployed a sound cannon, tear gas, and rubber bullets against the group after they refused to disperse.
In another political story, the government spending budget of 3.1 trillion baht for the 2022 fiscal year passed its second and third reading in the House of Representatives on Saturday night, with 257 in favor and 180 against following 5 days of debate. The outcome is actually expected as the government holds a comfortable majority in the lower house, even though the opposition tried really hard to trim down the budget. The bill will now move to the Senate, which is scheduled to debate it next Monday.
And moving on to tourism and business. According to the president of Pattaya Business and Tourism Association, the reopening of the beach town of Pattaya to foreign tourists from September 1st is likely to be postponed to October 1st, amid slow vaccine rollout in the resort town, which has not yet reached the target of 70%. And Pattaya is one of the 10 popular tourist spots, which the government aims to reopen first. At the moment, only Phuket and the islands of Surat Thani are welcoming international arrivals under the Phuket Sandbox and Samui Plus schemes, while plans in places like Chiang Rai have also been delayed.
And the Justice Ministry has modified a tablet press confiscated from an illegal drug manufacturing network to produce Pha Thalai Jone tablets in an effort to alleviate the shortage of COVID-19 medication. The ministry said the private sector has supplied 600 kilograms of this Thai herbal medicine, which will help them to produce 1.5 million tablets in the first batch. Back in June, the Public Health Ministry approved the use of Pha Thalai Jone in the treatment of mild symptoms of COVID-19 infection.
And that was an example of really good use of what you have, Kunat. And about the Pattaya reopening, the beach town is not the only one delaying its reopening due to the continued spread of COVID infections. So this has raised doubts if the Prime Minister's promise to fully reopen the country by mid-October can be fulfilled.
Right, and considering how the pandemic is still showing no signs of abating despite the partial lockdown measures, with only about 8% of the entire population being fully vaccinated, we still have a lot of time and we have to wait and see as well. Now it's time for this week's segment of Empowering Thai Women, where every Monday we'll be connecting you to amazing women who are successful and influential in their own ways. And in this episode, we interviewed Sudaporn Seesondee, also known as Thao, who earned a bronze medal from the Tokyo Olympics. And she explains the challenges of becoming a female boxer.
แล้วก็รู้สึกดีใจยังตื่นเต้นอยู่ค่ะมันเป็นเหมือนความภาคภูมิใจอะที่เต้าเหมือนเต้าเดินตามความฝันของตัวเองได้ค่ะตอนช่วงนั้นมันก็รู้สึกมันเป็นกีฬาที่ยิ่งใหญ่นะคะมันเป็นเหมือนความฝันของเราค่ะตอนนี้เต้ายังรู้สึกมันเป็นเหมือนเต้าฝันไปหรือเปล่าคะเต้ายังรู้สึกตื่นเต้นแบบเต้าไม่คิดว่ามันความเหมือนสิ่งเต้าฝันอะเป็นจริงค่ะ
Sudaporn Seesondee became another source of pride for the Thai nation after she earned a bronze medal for women's boxing at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Sudaporn also made history by being the first Thai female boxer to win any medal from the Olympic Games, not to mention that this is also her first time competing in this global event. Living the exciting dream can be nerve-wracking, especially when Sudaporn became the last hope for Thailand to win a medal in boxing, as other Thai boxers had already lost in the quarterfinals.
พอถึงรอบ8คนสุดท้ายค่ะหนูก็รู้สึกในเมื่อในทีมของเราเหมือนตกรอบไปหมดแล้วก็เหลือเราแค่คนเดียวเนี่ยเราก็อยากทำผลงานให้กับทีม มันก็มีรู้สึกที่กดดันนะคะแต่ว่าเราก็เหมือนเราก็ต้องขึ้นไปบางทีเราก็ต้องทำหน้าที่ของตัวเองแบบให้ดีที่สุดละค่ะแต่เราก็ทำเต็มที่ของเราแล้วพอหนูจบยก2นี่คือคะแนนมันสูสีกันใช่ไหมคะชิงดำยก3เนี่ยแล้วหนูก็พยายามบอกตัวเองว่าเรายังมีเวลานะอีกยกสุดท้ายอะไรเงี้ยเราพยายามบีบเหมือนให้เราอยู่ในมีสมาธิอยู่ในเกมของตัวเองอะค่ะ
Born in the northeastern province of Udon Thani, she got into boxing when she was 11, as her father, who was passionate about Thai boxing, created a small boxing camp in their home. Sudaporn admits that being a female boxer is not easy, as boxing is often perceived as a sport for men. However, this is what she loves and what she wants to be.
คือเส้นทางของนักมวยอ่ะมันก็ไม่มีอะไรที่สวยงามค่ะพอเรารู้สึกว่าเราได้ไปคุกคีกับมวยอะไรเงี้ยมันก็รู้สึกชอบในเส้นทางนี้ค่ะแล้วเราเป็นผู้หญิงอย่างเงี้ยมันก็มีคนที่เขาแบบว่าเขามุมมองของคนของเรามันแตกต่างกันนะคะแล้วเป็นผู้หญิงทำไมต้องมาเลือกเส้นทางนี้อะไรอย่างนี้ค่ะแต่เราก็ว่าในเมื่อเราชอบเส้นทางนี้เราก็ต้องเลือกเส้นทางนี้ค่ะหนูว่าอยู่กับมวยมีความสุขกว่าไปเล่นอย่างอื่นค่ะ
Before earning the bronze medal at the Olympics, Sudaporn has won numerous medals in different regional and world competitions. Her biggest supporter is none other than her father, who encouraged her to do what she loves regardless of what other people think.
มีเมื่อก่อนคือพ่อคิดว่าถ้าเราเลือกเส้นทางนี้เราต้องทำหน้าที่ของตัวเองให้ดีที่สุดนะไปดูเหมือนแกก็เคยพูดว่าดูพวกพี่เขาเป็นตัวอย่างนะอะไรเงี้ยคือเราในเมื่อเราเลือกแล้วเราก็ต้องทำให้ถึงสุดเมื่อก่อนหนูเคยคิดว่าหนูอยากติดทีมชาติแกก็ว่าเราต้องตั้งใจทำฝึกซ้อมของตัวเองให้ดีที่สุด
Being the only one out of 2 Thai athletes who won an Olympic medal may be enough to prove that women are as competent as men. Sudaporn also reminded those who aspire to become athletes that nothing is too hard to achieve as long as you have the passion for it.
ถามว่าความรู้สึกเป็นยังไงมันก็ดีใจนะคะเพราะว่าเราได้แสดงศักยภาพคำว่าผู้หญิงให้ได้โลกได้รู้ว่าผู้หญิงคนไทยก็ไม่ได้ด้อยจากต่างประเทศเหมือนกันแต่ก็อยากขอบคุณพี่น้องชาวไทยทุกคนนะคะที่ส่งแรงใจมาเชียร์แต้วในศึกโอลิมปิกครั้งนี้ถ้าไม่มีกำลังใจที่ดีแต้วก็คงจะมีวันนี้ไม่ได้นะคะแต่ก็อยากฝากถึงผู้เยาวชนนะคะที่เป็นผู้หญิงหรือว่าผู้ชายที่ชอบเส้นทางมวยถ้าเรามีใจรักเราสามารถที่จะเหมือนเลือกเส้นทางเดินของชีวิตได้ค่ะหนูว่าเส้นทางของนักกีฬานี่ไม่ว่าจะเป็นชนิดกีฬาไหนถ้าเรามีใจรักหรือว่าพร้อมที่จะเหมือนเรียนรู้อะไรอย่างหนูว่ามันก็ไม่ยากสำหรับที่เราจะรับในสิ่งต่างๆนะคะ
And the most important lesson that we've learned from Tao is that nothing is too hard to achieve as long as you believe in yourself and your potential, and especially if you have the passion for it as well.
Especially, yes, true. When you have the passion, you can do things well. And definitely, we living in an age, thankfully, that moves towards this norm where gender doesn't really limit a person anymore. You don't really have to stick with the gender-defined roles anymore. And boxing is not just violent sports for men, for example.
Exactly, because we're seeing more female boxers taking up the sport as well, and this is definitely interesting as well.
Exactly. And with that inspirational story, we wrap up this edition of Good Morning with Thai PBS World. But don't forget, though, to follow us on our social media and our website, www.thaipbsworld.com, for all the latest updates and all the in-depth analyses. Also, we wish you to have a nice Monday morning.
And don't forget to catch our morning show every weekday at 7:30 a.m. only on Thai PBS. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow. สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีค่ะ